You better get out of that wheelchair fast, or you're gonna die. From behind me, desperately trying to stop the accelerating wheelchair, I can hear the cheerful voice of Tyler. I frantically pulled the brake of the wheelchair with my hands. He was a man careless with money, but still, we were supposed to have pledged our love that day. While struggling on the unstoppable wheelchair, anger welled up in me more than sadness. Third, the wheel got caught in something, and I was thrown from the wheelchair. A large noise echoed behind me, and I lost consciousness as it was. The next day, when I woke up, I was in a hospital room. Looking to the side, Tyler was crying on the next bed. After a while, noticing that I was looking, Tyler started talking with a flattering smile. "Amy, you're okay. I'm glad. I got hit by a car there, and my leg. Getting more and more emotional, Tyler pulled off the blanket. There was Tyler's body with only one leg attached. "Hey, you're gonna help me right. We're married, aren't we?" I refuse. Not thinking I would refuse. Tyler is dumbfounded. Who's gonna help? I decided to vent all my thoughts. My name is Amy Moore. I'm a 45-year-old illustrator. I liked being active when I was young, and I even participated in national swimming competitions during my student days. Even as a working adult, I enjoyed various sports without change, but about 2 years ago, I got a certain disease, and I can no longer put strength into my left leg. I did not hear the diagnosis directly, but with a leg that has little to no sensation, I cannot walk, and now I am living in a wheelchair. My husband, Tyler, is a year older, and we met at a group date. My house was originally wealthy, and my father was a well-known company president in society. So many people, both men and women, wanted to get in on that windfall. Actually, my father has never favored me or my siblings, and while it might have been a privileged environment, there's no return for pleasing me. But still, many people thought so and approached me, and I was sick of it. In the midst of that, only Tyler seemed to look at me, not the money, and our relationship developed. Our dates were picnics and mountain climbing, and anniversaries were at each other's homes. We were happily nurturing our love, and around the time we entered our 3rd year of dating, we got married. Our new home was very close to my in-laws' house, and they adored me, especially my father-in-law, with whom I shared a love for sports, and we often went to watch games together. We had been married for 10 years, hadn't been blessed with children, but we were still living happily. However, as soon as I started my life in a wheelchair, Tyler's attitude completely changed. He began to demand, as a matter of course, that my family pay for the cost of making our home accessible and for arranging a helper. Of course, my father didn't pay for that. I was originally planning to cover it with my savings and future salary. When I told this to Tyler, an unexpected reply came back. "Then the inheritance will decrease, won't it?" "What do you mean?" "My illness was not supposed to be life-threatening. Even so, why do I have to be told about an inheritance?" Startled by my voice, Tyler suddenly began to speak in a coaxing tone. "No. Sorry, I made a mistake. Your savings, right? See, I thought we're gonna need a lot from now on." I was not convinced by Tyler's poor excuse, but since he hated reducing our marital assets extremely, I reluctantly told myself that maybe it's just his stinginess again. After that, Tyler often mentioned inheritance or insurance. Gradually, he stopped making excuses and started suggesting things like, "Let's switch to a more expensive insurance." I found myself unable to understand Tyler anymore. In the end, despite Tyler's objections, I decided to use the savings I had accumulated before marriage and that year's bonus to fund the renovations. And I decided to request a housekeeping service company about 3 times a week. With the house made accessible, I was able to do the housework even in a wheelchair. So 3 times a week was enough. The person in charge was an older woman with a good demeanor, and it became my pleasure to have tea with her during breaks. However, it seemed that Tyler didn't like the woman in charge, and he often complained. The way she folded the laundry was different. The order in which she arranged the washed dishes was different, and sometimes he even felt the taste of the food was different. All of these were such nitpicks that could be called fault-finding, and one day I finally exploded in anger. "Why do you say such rude things?" It's true, right? She's getting money for such a shoddy job. The world is being taken for granted. Besides, it's weird to pay for housework. Have her do it for free. There's no way that can happen. Tyler was momentarily taken aback by my ferocity, but he soon began to smirk, and then he said something unbelievable. "If you insist, then fine," he said. "I'll deduct the same amount we're paying her from her living expenses." What? I felt dizzy with Tyler's incomprehensible decision. We have been paying the in-charge woman about $1,000 a month. Half of that amount I had been contributing by adding to the living expenses for my own savings. But now Tyler said he was going to put that $1,000 into his own allowance instead of the living expenses. Our living expenses were already stretched thin, so if Tyler didn't contribute, I would have to make up the difference. In other words, my own out-of-pocket contribution would go from $500 to $1,500, basically tripling. Holding my temple strongly, I answered, "If you deduct $1,000, your contribution to the living expenses becomes $500. Where do you think I'm going to find the extra $1,000? Well, it's your whim, so you should pay for it. You're earning, aren't you?" Unbelievable. It's true that after falling ill, I had bravely gone independent and was succeeding, but my income was just a bit higher than when I was a company employee. If I had to deduct another $1,000, I wouldn't be able to save any money. However, Tyler showed no signs of backing down. "Fine, but promise me one thing. Make sure you save that $1,000 properly." Got it. With Tyler cheerfully agreeing, I felt nothing but anxiety, and that anxiety soon proved to be well-founded. Tyler stopped complaining about the housework agency, but correspondingly, Tyler stopped doing any housework. Hey, even though we're asking the housework agency, we should do the daily chores. What are you talking about? We're paying them, so let them do it. Tyler began to leave the house more often. There was no conversation, and on the rare occasions when we met, he made a disgusted face. The word divorce started floating in my mind. Hey, wanna go see the cherry blossoms in the botanical garden? Cherry blossoms. We had been living with minimal conversation for 2 months. It was early spring. Suddenly, Tyler said this, leaving me baffled. Smiling, Tyler continued to talk to me, who was at a loss. "Recently, we've just been passing by each other, right?" I thought I'd like to have a little talk while looking at the beautiful flowers. "Well, okay then." "All right, let's go," Tyler cheerfully exclaimed as he began pushing my wheelchair. The trivial conversation after so long eased my weary heart a bit. Maybe the recent discord was because we hadn't been talking enough. It was when I began to think that way. "You know, I'm out of money. I really need your insurance money soon." "What?" Along with Tyler's unheard voice, my wheelchair was pushed vigorously and began to descend the slope on its own. Unable to understand the situation, I panicked. Still, I desperately reached for the brake. You better get out of that wheelchair fast, or you're gonna die." From behind me, as I tried desperately to stop the accelerating wheelchair, Tyler's merry voice echoed. Desperately, I pulled the wheelchair brake with my hand. He was a man careless with money, but we were supposed to have vowed love that day. As I struggled atop the uncontrollable wheelchair, anger bubbled within me more than sadness. The tire caught on something, and I was thrown from the wheelchair. A loud noise followed behind, and I lost consciousness then and there. And the next day, when I woke up, I was in a hospital room. Looking sideways, Tyler was crying on the next bed. After a while, noticing that I was watching, Tyler spoke with a fawning smile. "Annie, you're safe." "I'm glad. I was hit by a car there and my leg, becoming increasingly emotional. Tyler tore off his blanket. From there appeared Tyler's body with only one leg attached. You'll help me, right? We're husband and wife, right?" I refuse. Huh? It seems he never imagined I would refuse. Tyler was left speechless. Who would even think about helping him? I decided to let out all the feelings I had been holding in. Why should I take care of someone who pushed me down a hill just to get insurance money? It was a moment of madness. I'm regretting it. If saying sorry could fix everything, we wouldn't need the police. My words turned Tyler's face pale blue. I continued to talk without letting him interrupt. Besides, weren't you supposed to be saving $1,000 a month for me? What happened to that? I am doing that. Oh, really? Then you can pay for this hospital stay with that money. Well, about that, Tyler was stammering in a panic, and for a good reason. His bank account was practically empty. Why do I know this, you ask? Because I have the bank book. Tyler, always finding things troublesome, only checked his account online. Therefore, I usually managed and kept all the bank books. Back when our relationship was good, I never felt the need to check how much money he had. But since he hadn't been depositing the $1,000, I started keeping the accounts, and I found out that instead of saving money, he was sending it somewhere else. The recipient was a woman. I hired a detective and found out that Tyler had not only cheated on me, but even had a child. The money was going to his affair partner as child support for his kid, 4 years old. Cute age? Huh. Have you been visiting her? How long have you known? A month now. As I said this, Tyler's mouth hung open in shock. I dropped another bomb on him. Really? I was shocked because you're paying child support for someone else's child. Tyler had a confused look on his face, understandably so, as Tyler believed the child his affair partner had given birth to was his own. I couldn't hold back my laughter. Then Tyler cut it off with a disgruntled voice. "What the hell are you talking about? That kid is truly mine." Hearing those words, I burst out laughing even more. Seeing me like that, Tyler looked at me as if I was something creepy, so I decided to tell him the truth. "But you see, you can't even have children." I continued talking while laughing at his most foolish face and voice ever since we met. "You really thought I was the reason we couldn't have kids. Well, I was considerate and didn't tell you, but your father knows. It's a lie." Blood completely drained from Tyler's face. Actually, we had been undergoing infertility treatment for about 3 years since our marriage. At that time, Tyler reluctantly took the test. As a result, it was revealed that the cause was with Tyler. However, after consulting with my father-in-law, I decided to keep it a secret from Tyler. My father-in-law had the view that Tyler, who is mentally fragile, would not know what to do if confronted with that fact. Hearing my father-in-law's view I was troubled. But in the end, I continued the infertility treatment without telling Tyler the results and stopped it at Tyler's request. After telling him all this, Tyler suddenly called someone on his smartphone. "Hey, you had an affair, didn't you? The kid ain't mine, is it?" Watching Tyler yell like that at the first word, I understood who he was calling. Tyler seemed to be getting arguments from the other end, and occasionally his voice would leak out sharply. Among them, I burst out laughing at the words, "You had an affair too, didn't you?" Tyler is saying, "This isn't the time for such talk, but to me, both the woman who deceived Tyler to pay child support for another man's child and Tyler who spent all the money on child support and affairs and then pushed his wife off a hill for insurance money seemed equally terrible. It seems the call was unilaterally cut off, and he couldn't get through no matter how many times he tried calling back. Tyler was utterly angry at the attitude of his affair partner, seemingly forgetting I was beside him. That bastard, was she only after the money? "Sorry to interrupt while you're heated up, but we're not done talking," I said. "Ah, Amy." It seems Tyler finally remembered I was there, looking at me and sweating. I brought the conversation back with a smile. "Do you remember signing the papers when we decided to save that $1,000 you spent?" "Huh." I sighed at Tyler's attitude. He probably planned to go back on it later anyway. I picked up my smartphone from the table and showed him a photo. "See, it's written here, right? In the event of misuse, divorce, and the entire amount spent up to the discovered month will be paid to the wife. Amy, it's a scam. That was not there." "Oh, but it's properly checked, and there's a signature too, right? It's even notarized, isn't it?" Tyler looked frustrated, and then he immediately appealed to me with desperate eyes. "Come on, Amy. I was just possessed. Please don't say divorce, okay? Besides, I can't pay such a large amount. Divorce is settled. I can't do it anymore. But don't worry, you can pay the spent amount in installments." Seeing me like that, Tyler had a face like he's the victim. I sighed and called out to the figure hiding at the entrance of the hospital room. "Please come in, Dad." Seeing his father-in-law enter the room, Tyler shouted. My father-in-law, face red as if his veins might burst, is glaring at Tyler. "This is the end of our relationship." "Huh? What are you talking about?" My father-in-law glared at Tyler and came over to me to apologize. "I'm truly sorry. I won't ask for forgiveness, and it's fine if you don't. Please file a complaint. I'm really glad Amy is safe. Thank you." He must be crying. Large drops of water are falling onto my bed. I glare at Tyler, the reason for making my beloved father-in-law do this. "What? Don't you feel anything seeing this? It's your fault. Always spending money and yet earning more than me, and your rich family is stingy. I don't know why I married you." "So, you are after the money too." Feeling like all the beautiful memories have been tainted, my voice is the lowest it's ever been in my life. Tyler is surprised, looking at me, while surprised at myself for deeply loathing Tyler. I put on a smile. "Well, marrying for money and in the end having to pay repayment." "Huh. Shut up. I'm not paying." "Too bad. Payment is a done deal." As I said this, my father-in-law, looking scary, told Tyler, "I will be watching you until the payments are done." I couldn't see, but his face must have been terrifying, as Tyler's face went pale and he was shaking. Excuse me for interrupting. In this worst atmosphere, a middle-aged doctor in a white coat entered. Coming straight to me, the doctor handed over a document. "Is there a reason you are not receiving treatment for your leg?" "What?" Tilting my head in confusion, I looked at Tyler, who was staring at the doctor with a pale face. The doctor continued speaking with a puzzled look. "If you have surgery on your leg, you'll be able to move again. Didn't you hear that when you were diagnosed before?" I didn't hear. I looked at Tyler, who was trying not to meet my eyes. Seeing that, I had a bad premonition. "Tyler, you lied to me, saying that the illness would never be cured and that I would never walk again." Ah, at Tyler's non-committal reply, my father-in-law again yells at him. I turned to the doctor and asked, "I didn't hear the diagnosis directly at the time. Could you please tell me?" "Yes, Amy, your illness is a temporary paralysis caused by a herniated disc hitting the spinal cord, leading to blood flow issues. Since some time has passed, you'll need rehab, but you'll be able to walk." I couldn't stop my tears at the doctor's words. I was wrong to trust Tyler and not hear the diagnosis, but my disgust for Tyler, who lied about a problem involving a person's life, grows by the minute. There's not a shred of affection left. "Tyler, what's going on?" "Tyler, don't just stand there, say something." My father-in-law's yelling echoes in the hospital room. Tyler's shoulders shudder, and he suddenly starts crying. "But if Emmy is free to roam the world, I'm always left behind. If she's in a wheelchair, she will always stay home, and she won't try to have more fun than me, right? So what? Your selfish jealousy has forced me to live in a wheelchair for 2 years, knowing I could have surgery to eliminate the pain and paralysis, and you kept silent. That's the worst." At my words, Tyler hangs his head in exhaustion. I look at him with cold eyes. Both the doctor and my father-in-law seem angry at Tyler for selfishly denying me my chance for treatment. "So, Amy, may I explain the surgery to you tomorrow?" "Yes, please do." I instantly brighten up. The doctor smiles back at me warmly. Just that gives me hope for a bright future ahead. I will instruct the nurse to separate the rooms. No, I don't want to be separated from Amy. The doctor glances at Tyler's sudden loud refusal, ignoring him. Then he says to me, "Then see you tomorrow," and leaves the room. "Amy, you're not really gonna divorce me, right? I'm an amputee, remember? I know I was wrong to keep quiet, but think about our current situation. Despite my father-in-law yelling at the incredibly selfish Tyler, he stands his ground. I silently watch, but seeing no sign of it settling down after about 10 minutes, I reluctantly speak up. "Then I'm gonna work, and you'll handle the chores. If you ask for a service, you'll pay for it. Oh, and I'll deduct that amount from the living expenses." "Ha! I can't live like that." "What are you saying?" "What? Was it strange?" "It's strange. Be kinder to me. I'm in a wheelchair for life." Tyler said so, his breathing harsh. What I had said was all that Tyler had said to me, but Tyler seemed to not notice. "Hey, do you realize?" "Huh, realize what?" "What I just said is what you said to me." As I said that, Tyler finally seemed to notice, his face turning pale as he froze in place. My father-in-law had also forgotten to shout. His face turned pale. It must have been a big shock to learn that the son he had desperately raised had said such terrible things to his wife. "Well, let's talk through lawyers from now on and about the compensation, too." "Wait, Amy." As Tyler called my name, a nurse came into the room. It seemed that I was moving rooms so Tyler couldn't easily barge in anymore. Tyler resisted to the end, but with one leg, he couldn't get up from the bed and could only scream. "Well, Tyler, goodbye. Wait for me." With Tyler screaming as the last thing I heard, I was pushed by the nurse and left the room. My father-in-law met my eyes and nodded, and I bowed my head in return. That was the last time I met Tyler. A few months later, I received divorce papers from Tyler through the lawyer, and the divorce was successfully concluded. I heard Tyler is quite disheartened and is living under the strict supervision of my father-in-law. He seems to have been able to keep his clerical job, but it seems that the reason for the divorce leaked somehow, and the colleagues who were worried about his injury at the time of his return are now looking at him coldly. Tyler brought it upon himself, but I heard him lamenting, "My colleagues are harassing me," and I couldn't help but bitterly smile, thinking he hasn't changed a bit. Actually, I still meet my father-in-law now and then after the divorce with Tyler, partly to check on Tyler's situation, but mainly because we are hobby friends. Initially, my father-in-law seemed apologetic, but recently he is getting back to his usual self. Upon investigation, it was revealed that the affair partner was married and had been married to the real father of her child. I sent the evidence of the affair and child support transfer to the affair partner's husband. It seems he found out about the affair from the evidence I sent, and a huge dispute ensued. It seems they also got divorced. A resentful letter arrived at the lawyer's office, but all were ignored. As for me, I underwent surgery immediately after that, and then spent about 6 months in the hospital for physical therapy. Thanks to my father-in-law's arrangement, I was able to continue working while staying in a private room. After being discharged, thanks to ongoing physical therapy and regular checkups, I can now walk with a cane. A recent daily routine is to take a walk around the house. Actually, recently, I exchanged contact information with someone I met during those walks and promised to go for a meal. He's a very kind person who helped me when I stumbled and fell over a rock. These days, the exhilarating feeling of a new spring coming makes my excitement unstoppable.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. "I will do my best." Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. "Did you not hear what I said?" "I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully." Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look, "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day." Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. "So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.